All right, today we are jumping into one of history's most dramatic turning points. We're talking about the downfall of a king and the birth of a revolution that would literally change the world. I want you to just try and picture this for a second. You are the absolute ruler of one of the most powerful nations on earth. I mean, we're talking 18th century Europe. For King Louis XVI of France, that wasn't a fantasy. That was his life. His whole world? It was the magnificent palace of Versailles. And that place? Wow. It was a universe of insane parties, super complicated court rituals, and just a level of luxury that's hard to even wrap your head around today. But right outside those golden gates, it was a completely different reality. The rest of France, they were struggling. People were hungry, facing incredible hardship. So this is the story of how that powerful king lost absolutely everything. His crown, his kingdom, and yeah, even his life. So to really get how this all happened, how it all just fell apart, you gotta understand that there were basically two different worlds living side by side in France back then. And the difference between them was just huge. On one hand, you've got the royal court at Versailles, living in this little bubble of crazy luxury and over-the-top fashion. And on the other hand, the actual people of France, getting crushed by rising food prices and taxes that were, paying for all that luxury. The disconnect was just massive. It was this huge gap, plus a perfect storm of other problems that basically pushed the whole country right to the edge of collapse. Okay, so you have to remember what kind of government they had. It was an absolute monarchy. What's that mean? It means the king had all the power, like total, unquestionable power. He was the governant. Whatever he said went. But here's the thing. That system was totally failing. France was broke. I mean, drowning in debt from years of royal spending and expensive wars. And here's a little bit of irony for you. One of those wars was the American Revolution. And the guy in charge of all this, King Louis XVI. People said he wasn't a bad guy, not cruel, but just weak. He couldn't make a decision to save his life, and he was completely in over his head. So you can imagine the mood in the country was getting ugly. You can feel it when you read stuff from that time. One person wrote it pretty simply. The people were losing patience. I mean, they just had enough. They were at their breaking point and were about to demand big changes. And by 1789, well, that patience was gone. All that anger that had been simmering under the surface, it finally just exploded into open revolution. And things started happening fast, incredibly fast. In May, they call a big meeting to try and fix things. Just 2 months later, in July, you have crowds storming the Bastille prison, this huge symbol of the king's power. And by August, the whole old system, all the special privileges for the rich, it's all just starting to fall apart. And what did the revolutionaries want? Well, their demands were pretty radical for the time and super clear. They wanted freedom, they wanted equality, and they wanted to completely change who held the power. Get it away from the king and give it to the people. So the king is facing this huge challenge to his power, something no king had really faced before. And he makes one single decision, a decision that pretty much sealed his fate. There was no going back after this. What did he do? He tried to run. He and his family made this desperate escape attempt, trying to get out of the country. But it was a total failure. They got recognized and caught in a small town called Varennes. And that trip back to Paris, man, it was just humiliating. They left as royalty and they came back as prisoners. And that right there, that changed everything. The fact that he tried to ditch his own people, it just destroyed whatever little trust was left. Suddenly, the question wasn't about how to fix the system anymore. The question became much, much bigger. Was this guy still our king, or was he a traitor? And what came next was something nobody had ever seen before. Something that was going to send shockwaves across the whole world. They put the king on trial. His own people. Can you even picture that? All the other kings and queens in Europe were watching, absolutely horrified. How could regular people put a king on trial? A guy they believed was chosen by God. So in January of 1793, the tense trial finally ends. And the verdict comes in. Guilty! The new revolutionary government found citizen Louis Capet, they wouldn't even call him king anymore, guilty of treason. The sentence? Death. And so the final act of this whole drama was about to play out, and what happened next would change history forever. On January 21st, 1793, right in a public square in Paris, Louis XVI was executed by guillotine. And what's really interesting is that people who were there said the huge crowds didn't cheer. They just watched in this deep, heavy silence. A king was dead. A crown had fallen. You can't overstate how big a deal this was. First, it sent a shockwave of fear through all the other royal families in Europe. I mean, if it could happen there, it could happen anywhere, right? But even bigger than that, it proved this totally radical idea that the real power doesn't have to belong to a king. It can belong to the people. The world was never going to be the same. But think about it. We still have kings and queens today. So the fall of Louis XVI leaves us with this really interesting question, doesn't it? Why did some royal families get totally wiped out by revolutions while others figured out a way to adapt and survive? That's a question we'll have to dig into another time.